Hi, everyone. My name is Jalen, and on this episode for the Hotelie Podcast, we have Lisa Chervinsky. Lisa Chervinsky is a lecturer in property development and management at the Nolan Hotel School. After earning her bachelor's from the hotel school, she moved to Chicago to pursue a master's in architecture. Now, she is a licensed architect with her own company called Collective Vision Design Ltd. Prior to returning to Cornell, she was also the vice president of VOA Associates Incorporated, during which she oversaw the interior design for hospitality projects in China. She is also a mother who is passionate about providing equal working opportunities for parents so they can balance their work life and families.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Hotelie Podcast. I'm your host, Suero.
I'm your co-host, Theo, Belin, and today we are joined by our esteemed guest, Lisa Chervinsky. How are you doing, Professor Chervinsky?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here.
Well, so very recently, I got to know you as one of my professors for hotel development. And I'm not going to lie, it's probably one of the most fun classes I've taken here at the hotel school. The concept that I'm learning, actually the process of the real estate cycle and how that implements into actually constructing of a hotel and finding the investors and building it and all the zoning restrictions and just all the things that you never really realize go into hotel development. And I realized that back in the day, you actually TA'd a class for hotel development, and now you are the professor here at Cornell for the same class that you TA'd. How has that changed over the years?
Well, actually, I have to say that it's surprisingly similar. And I'm so glad that you say that it's one of your favorite classes. This is actually the class that inspired me to become an architect and interior designer for the hospitality industry. It was basically, really the principle behind real estate development in hospitality has, been similar over time. The goal is to create these activated, engaged environments where people want to gather, that people will spend money on food and beverage, drive revenue, and so creating these amazing environments that people want to be impacts the bottom line. And, over the past 30 years, that's really been the goal. Brands have come up with different buzzwords and what they call lobby spaces, communal tables, this and that. But even though the terminology has evolved, the overall goal for hospitality real estate development has been somewhat constant. So the class has been, when I first got here, it's going on 4 years ago, the structure of the class was surprisingly similar to what I took. Obviously it's been updated, and we're continuing to evolve the curriculum. But yeah, it's pretty similar, actually.
Exceptional.
Definitely. And similarly to Lucas, I took your class last semester, and I think it's by far the most creative class you can take in the hotel school. It's been my favorite class. I want to pursue development because of you and your course, so thank you for that. But hospitality development is not the only course you teach at the hotel school. You also teach a hospitality design course, correct?
Yeah, so it's a hospitality visioning class. So the official title is Hospitality Visioning and Concept Design. And it's really all about, students working in teams, and they envision a boutique hotel project based on a specific location. So, and more specifically, a neighborhood. So they really have to do a lot of research and to capture the feel of the neighborhood. Envision a brand story, and then the second half of the class is translating that brand story into a conceptual design. So that's really fun. One of the things that I love about hotel development is that it's very right brain and left brain. And one of the things you said, it's, one of the most creative courses. One of the things that we really like to capture is this creative aspect and this idea of envisioning new hospitality concepts. But there's also very much an analytical side of it. It has to be backed up by, financial pro forma, and, it needs to be market driven. And so I love the fact that it has the analytical side and the creative side.
So for these classes that you teach, what are some ways that you working in the industry beforehand, how did you bring that into the classroom to now teach students?
One of my main goals is really to inspire a passion in students for hospitality development or real estate development. And no matter what you decide to go into, real estate has a relevance in everyone's life. There's very pressing topics in real estate development, single-family home shortages, housing shortages in general. All of these things have real-world impact on people. And then also the fact that even if you're working in a hotel, working in a restaurant in food and beverage, how hard you need to work to drive revenue is directly tied to how that real estate development was set up, how the developer negotiated the deal, what's the debt service, all of that, their annual debt service that they have to make, is something that everybody needs to be aware of to cover the obligations. And so any revenue that you're driving, that's paying off that debt. So, a lot is tied to how that initial deal is structured. So anyway, I think I might have gotten a little bit off topic.
No, we love that. So you spent the first pretty much 30 years of your career working on a ton of projects all over the world, pretty much. I mean, you were working with Disneyland in China and a lot of other projects. Can you tell us some of the things that you did and maybe some of the more fun projects that you worked on?
Yeah, so it was actually the Hello Kitty theme park in Anji, China. I worked on that for a pretty brief point in my career, probably about a year, when working for a company called VOA, which is now Stantec, but working with our teams in Beijing and Shanghai. It was incredibly rewarding, kind of mentoring young designers and really kind of understanding the difference between development that happens in the United States and internationally.
Right. What was the difference? What were the main things that you saw? I mean, I'm sure there was a language barrier.
Yes and no. The people, pretty much everyone in our office spoke English, so that wasn't so much a problem. But in the United States, real estate development is so bottom line driven. In other countries, I feel like it's a lot more driven by ego, and
Wow.
And also, the projects in China, a lot of it is driven by prestige. So hospitality in China, they use the hotel to sell mixed-use developments. So every mixed-use development needs to have that 5-star hotel in order to attract retail, attract residential. So they're not as concerned about the hotel making money. It's almost seen as an amenity for the guests and something that is going to bring the prestige to the development and make sure everything else gets leased.
And that's in contrast to the U.S., where investors are looking for that hotel to make money, and that be the actual attractor.
Yeah, absolutely. And so because in this country everything needs to get that return on investment, that it's just a different different strategy. We're not able to spend it. You don't have as much flexibility in your budgets and in this country. So yeah, that was very interesting. But kind of circling back to what we were talking about and how my experience has impacted my teaching, talking about these real life experiences, I believe, is what gives the material relevance to students. They're not going to remember the sort of minute facts that they have to memorize, but they will remember the more anecdotal stories that we talk about, or, the relevant articles that I have students read about current events and, real world issues and those conversations that we have in class. I think that's what brings the material to life and makes it more relevant. And hopefully those are the lessons that they'll carry with them throughout their careers, whether they decide to pursue real estate development or anything related, but hopefully they'll remember some of those conversations.
I completely agree. I remember in class last semester, those examples that you used about, redevelopment or renovation projects definitely stuck with me. And so I feel like it really does help the students understand the material better. But my next question is, on top of being a lecturer at the hotel school, you also have your own business, right? Mm-hmm. You help, businesses design hospitality spaces. And so what's kind of, some of the projects you've been working on or are going to work on in the future?
Yeah, so right now I'm really glad to be working on a small inn that's local, La Tourelle. Those of you who are familiar with Ithaca, it's up just past Ithaca College. It's a 52-room inn that was built in the 1980s. It's been family-owned for years, and a couple of hotel school alumni have recently put together a team of investors and purchased it. So It's really great to be working with some hoteliers on this project. And it's a small project, but it's so nice to be working on something local.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be a really fun transformation.
So what's the vision for it? What do you guys see with the property?
Well, it's right now. It sort of has this kind of this feel of a French country inn, and we feel like that is appropriate, especially for the architecture. It's on this beautiful site that is connected to the trails that head down to Buttermilk Falls. So it's on this gorgeous site that has beautiful views. And with the all the wineries in the Finger Lakes region, it really makes sense to sort of capitalize on that wine tradition in this region and make that part of the concept. So we're further developing, they established a good concept when they originally developed it. And so we're really kind of fine-tuning it to appeal to also start to appeal to a younger traveler, because right now most of their clientele, it's a lot of parents of students, I would say probably 40 plus crowd, and they've just recently brought glamping to the site, firelight glamping, and so there's potential to really expand their target market to a younger target market. So kind of making it more up to date, a little bit more traditional, more eclectic, blending it, it's always been very traditional, but bringing in some more modern touches to appeal to younger travelers.
That sounds like a really fun project.
Yeah, it is really fun.
Yeah, and I remember a couple weeks back you were telling me how you were helping a local business owner with one of his restaurants. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I did do some preliminary concepts for him. Unfortunately, he was not able to obtain the financing for the project, so we're not moving forward with that. But one of my aspirations, and I'm trying to push this in Ithaca, is to develop a food hall here. I feel like we're really it's something that could go really well here. So I can't really talk a lot about the details on that right now, but that's something that would be
that sounds
really
phenomenal.
appropriate for Ithaca, I think.
Yeah, super exciting. And so with this restaurant work, you also are very good friends with one of our good friends, Eduardo. I remember when I first came, first class at the hotel school, I had my professor, Dave Roberts. He told me about this shack on the road, which served tacos. And immediately I took an interest. As a foodie that I am, I love to try new things. And so I got the address and just drove down. And it was literally a shack on the road selling tacos. And I met him, and he was one of the most charming individuals. He always had a smile on his face. It could be literally 20 degrees snowing out, and he is still making tacos. And just recently, he just opened up his brick and mortar. What's the name of the restaurant now?
Tacos CDMX.
Taco CDMX. And to be honest, those are probably one of the best tacos I've ever had, especially here in the States. Would you mind just giving us a little bit of background of kind of how that, who is Eduardo and what is it?
Yeah, so Eduardo's my partner. We've been together 10 years. He calls me his wife, but we're not technically married, but that's okay. So anyway, yeah, we met 10 years ago. We actually met salsa dancing.
Oh, wow.
And when I came, I got this opportunity to come to Ithaca 4 years ago. I obviously wanted him to come with me. However, we were like, all right, there's not a whole lot of opportunity in Ithaca unless you're connected with the university. There's not a whole lot of manufacturing. We're pretty remote up here. And Eduardo always had a dream of opening a Mexico City style taco stand that you're, at eye level, one-on-one with the person making their tacos, like you find, all throughout Mexico City on the street, where you can hear the sizzle of the meat and the smell of the tacos. And so that was his dream. And so we actually, he had a really hard time finding a location. I do have to say, Ithaca is a very challenging real estate market. Either the spaces are too big, or they're too small, or they're too old, or there's no parking. It's difficult. And he asked a lot of businesses if he could open in their parking lot, and got a lot of rejection. And finally, Diane, who heads up the reuse center, was so open, and she allowed us to set up the little shop in their parking lot. So we built this 8x8 taco stand for less than $1,000, and he opened up shop. Yeah, and it's been incredibly successful, and we recently, last July, relocated to Press Bay Alley, and that's been an amazing experience. But never in my life did I think that I would ever own a restaurant, but it's been awesome because I actually started out in food and beverage. I started out waitressing and bartending.
Those humbling beginnings.
So, yeah, and I love food and beverage, working in that part of hospitality. So it's sometimes fun to kind of go in there and get back to those original hospitality roots. So,
definitely. Did you ever imagine when you were a student here that you would come back to Ithaca later on?
I always wanted to come back and teach. I didn't really envision myself being here full time. I came about this opportunity sort of by happenstance. Stephanie Robson, who used to teach the course prior to me, was a former student, and we were classmates. She was a couple years older than me, and I connected with her November of 2019 because I had a reunion. I tried to connect with her. I wanted to take on some summer interns. And so when I was talking to her, she was like, oh, I just want to let you know I'm retiring. So if you know anyone that's interested in teaching this course, it's a pretty unique skill set because they need to understand architecture and hospitality. And my son at that time was still in high school, and I said, oh, wow, it sounds like a really amazing opportunity. If I were at a different point in my career, then maybe I would be interested. But then I started thinking about it, and I talked to my parents. I actually grew up in Syracuse, so my parents are here, and I've spent my entire adult life in Chicago. And so the more I thought about it, I'm like, you know what, I should just apply, see what happens, And so the day that I was here interviewing in March of 2020 was the day the university decided to shut down for COVID.
Oh, no.
So I did my interview and everything, but that was literally the last day on campus. So, the world was changing around us. And so the opportunity was looking even better and better.
Right.
So yeah, it was. So I took the job in July, and
Never looked back.
Yeah. So
your first semester of teaching was remote, online.
So yes. So that fall, I didn't teach. I was just observing other professors, kind of sitting in on the classes and everything. And then the spring of 2021 was my first semester teaching it, and it was online. But I did relocate to Ithaca, and I was actually teaching my elective in person. Awesome. Because I felt so bad for the seniors. I really wanted the seniors to be able to have an in-person class. So I was teaching 2550 hotel development online, and then my elective in person.
Awesome.
So COVID had a big impact on pretty much the entire world, but more specifically, it had a big impact on the lodging industry and just hospitality in general. So moving out of COVID and kind of in the post-COVID era, what do you think the effects of COVID were on the hospitality industry?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it was a really tough time for hospitality, but I think with any tough time, there's also opportunity. And I really feel like we're at this moment in time where we have the opportunity to reinvent ourselves. One of the things that's happened now is this whole concept of hybridization, right? We've done mixed-use developments with separate residential and hospitality and retail and restaurants on the ground level, but things have been somewhat separate. But today there is a real opportunity for hospitality to really become the central gathering place for communities. More people are working from home. They're lacking that social connection. And so having a hotel environment where you're really blending the residential, hospitality, and office component in one, I feel like has so much more relevance today. It doesn't make sense to build a hotel with residential and then have separate amenities. Why not share the fitness center, share the pool, share co-working space where it can really become a central gathering space.
Absolutely.
And what do you think the most important component of designing hospitality spaces is?
I think with designing hospitality spaces, they need to be rooted in something real. And that's where the research comes in. For a successful development, you want it to evolve over time. And so you have to develop a concept that is rooted in something real, that is connected to location, so that it maintains its relevance. You don't want to be too trendy or so that it dates in 5 years. Right. But if you really get into, do a lot of research into the location and come up with a concept that is rooted in that location and has a connection to place, then it will give you a really solid foundation. And so I think that that's what's most important. And, and it's not only about designing a space that's rooted in something real. The staff, everyone there needs to buy into that concept so that they can actually deliver on the concept. So there's a connection between, service level and design.
And so in the hospitality industry, technology is a big aspect in kind of how everything works. And no one has a magic ball to know what's going to come out next. What's the new technology? One of the big things that I noticed, at least when Apple first started, they had a pretty fat charger, and that's what you plugged in. And a lot of hotels that I was staying at bought, like clocks that you could plug in with a speaker for that specific phone. But then a few years later, Apple changed the charger, and pretty much all those clocks and speakers could no longer be used. So what do you say to developers that are trying to implement technology but not sure what it's going to look like for the future?
Yeah, and technology in hospitality is very challenging. A typical guest room cycle, you'll renovate soft goods, every 4 to 6 years and do a total renovation every 7 to 12, depending on abuse. And so technology is changing so fast that you're right, things become obsolete. And quite honestly, lots of times, even brands that emphasize technology, lots of times the technology is the first thing to get cut. And so that's why we see so many hotels, our hotel guest rooms, that are lagging behind in technology. But I think now, to push technology, developers need to see the business case. They need to see how technology is going to work for them, save them money. There's opportunities to save on labor through technology, and especially at a time where, labor is really tight in the hospitality industry. I think that's where you're going to see more development in technology.
Absolutely. And so we want to just, finish this podcast off with one final question that we ask every guest, and that is, what is the top career lesson you have learned along your journey?
I guess as a working mom, I would say balance. One of the things that really pushed me to start my own business is working for a big firm in Chicago. So many really talented women leave the industry when they have children because they can't balance it. Especially there's so many careers that are very, long hours, low pay. And when I was fortunate when I was in that position, my kids were older. But I always tried to compartmentalize my life. When I was at work, I was 100% focused on work. When I went home, I was 100% focused on home. I didn't check my emails in the evening. I didn't check my emails on the weekends. That was my family time. And I think today, with so many people working from home, their lives are so blended, and you don't get a break. And so I do think it's really important to know when to turn it off, especially with technology and social media, that can always be in your face. And so being able to take that downtime and, focus on your work, be really driven, but you also have to have the flip side of that, where you're 100% focusing on your personal life, your social relationships, and finding that right balance. I really think helps you thrive in both aspects of your life. So.
Thank you. Very insightful. Well, thank you so much for being here. It was wonderful to speak to you and just hear a perspective of what it's like to be in the real estate world. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Great. Well, this has been another episode of the Hotelie Podcast, and we thank you all for listening. We'll catch you guys next time. Thank you.